at the hallowed GAA field.
Yeah, and the kids were playing GAA at half time and everything, which was fantastic as well. I'd love to have seen it. Yeah.
From Era Og, as Tommy Martin insisted on calling them on TV. Nordies and Irish, never let them near it.
I saw some lovely photos as well of Dennis Irwin and Roy Keane just signing autographs and that. It was brilliant that there's such a great turnout. Only fitting, and I'm sure people are wondering now, how was it ever thought that it wouldn't be possible?
Yeah,
I was there such a furore over it.
Fantastic reception for all those involved this afternoon. Somewhat fittingly, as we mentioned, bookended by Cork goal scorers. Dennis Irwin with a penalty to open up the scoring for Manchester United. Colin Healy making it 2-2. And Mark McNulty getting an outing in the Manchester United jersey as well. That's another all sorts. And
Cork boy.
Yeah, and Dublin netting the winner on penalties in Cork. So some kind of weird happenstance going on there.
How did your Kev do? Is that a bad subject? I was listening to the radio commentary because I was travelling, and I heard someone saying he missed a bit of a sitter early on.
He missed 2 sitters, Cliona. He missed 2 sitters. Last night he was fairly determined that he would score, and given his positioning for a man of, 47, 48 now at this stage, maybe more, he found himself in advanced positions on the pitch in an effort to try and get a goal, and he did get his foot to the ball in the last 6 yards, inside the 6 yard box on a couple of occasions. He missed both occasions. 7-1 for first time goal.
He was there.
Yeah, some of us had money on him, Cliona. There was odds on him. They now seem generous.
Was there much money on it?
I don't want to say. Here's what Keith Andrews made of young Kilban's composure in front of goal today.
Look at the willingness to get forward. He's been the one on that left hand side.
Brings you back,
get up and
he's been looking
down.
to kind of get in around the back post. Here was a great chance. Should he have done better here?
Tommy, I mentioned up there, what do you think he would have been saying if he had been Saddam Whiteside up there? He has to score. It's as simple as that. And this one here does really well, actually. That's the run we're talking about again, and he squares it.
This is rolling back the years stuff, isn't it?
Yeah, it's killer in a nutshell, isn't it? Driving forward, picks out the pass, Maloney, little nick off Pilkington.
Yeah, the second one there, he goes to try and put the ball in the net with the outside of his right, but he's trying to be flash. And instead, he should have gone with his right instead of his left, and it's a mess. We ended up with Kevin Kilban disappointing the whole office. And to be fair as well, there was a chance for Kenny Cunningham.
You can never say that for such an event.
When Kenny Cunningham... No, he did. He let the side down. When Kenny Cunningham came on as well, he had a chance in the second half too, and he fluffed his lines. But I suppose for the Cork crowd that was there to get to see those involved, absolutely fantastic.
Yeah,
some of the players looking really fit and healthy.
Yeah,
and well.
yeah, that's
Others,
a scary bit.
Without wanting to point fingers and name names, because I'm, no fit spring chicken myself. Not looking to May West, looking like they haven't.
Yeah, but that's the whole
That's the
point.
joy of retirement.
That's the joy of testimonials. That's the joy of all those things.
But
what a great occasion.
Yeah, nearly 43,000 on hand today, and ultimately that's what everybody wanted, is pretty much a full house.
That must be nearly the biggest crowd they've had there so far.
Well, we'll not mention that to any GA heads might be around. If you want to get in contact tonight, 53106 for 30 cent. If you were down there as well at Porky Queeve this afternoon, let us know how it was for you. You can tweet us as well at Off the Ball. The big news, literally as we were wrapping up last night, it came through. I mentioned it in the football show. It's been obviously the big GA story of the day today. Is Liam Sheedy going back as Tipperary hurling manager? The name came up in dispatches over the course of the last week and a half, maybe, that he's going to be in the frame to take this over. A lot of people would have presumed maybe Liam Cahill, given the job he'd done with the under-21s.
Such a great job with the under-21s. The amazing thing is that Liam Sheedy left so suddenly. After the 2010, when he took everybody by surprise by actually walking away from it, and now he's taken everybody by surprise by coming back into it, which is really, really, I think it's caught a lot of people on the hop. The big question now, of course, is going to be who's in the backroom team, and the word in Tip is they are in the minors, and so that they're trying to solidify those at the moment. But one of the strongest rumours is that Tommy Dunn would be part of his backroom team, who managed the minors this year to a Munster title and is a very well-respected coach.
And even speaking to him here, anytime he's been on the show as a pundit, Tommy's hurling brain is
really,
quite
really
evident.
Smart, I mean, I wouldn't, given what Liam Cahill has done, I would say there's a real surprise that he didn't get it, and possibility maybe that he could be there again as well, or could be involved in some way. Sheedy's brother John was on that under-21 management, so maybe he would be there as well. There's lots of names being thrown around. Owen Kelly's was one I heard today, but look, this always goes into the realms of wild speculation until we actually know.
That's what's good about GA, though, is the wild speculation.
That's what makes it, especially at this quiet time of year.
We need something.
Big into the wild speculation. Sheedy's a very interesting man. He reminds me of Mick Ryan, who from Waterford. Anybody who knows Waterford football, particularly women's football and hurling, and managed the Waterford hurlers as well. Mick pops up, you're often at a match, an inter-county match, and you suddenly look down the sideline, you think he's managing somebody else, you look down and he's in the back room of some other team. And Sheedy's a bit like that as well. I've seen him at camogie matches. He was obviously involved with Antrim this year. He was advising Offaly in the last few years. He knows camogie really well as well. And then he's some really interesting, as far as I know, he's on the management committee in the GA, which is interesting to have. If that
he's also involved in Sport Ireland as well.
He's the head. Yeah. He's head of the high performance. He's the chairperson of the high performance committee in Sport Ireland. So he's very involved on that end as well. So he's very involved in a lot of things, and I'm really surprised to see him go back in. But obviously he's talked and done interviews and said, he couldn't resist the urge to go back in.
One of the quotes, because this obviously popped up at the start of August when Michael Ryan made it known that he wouldn't be continuing on in the job. He was, as Liam has been in the past while, been a pundit on the Sunday Game, and Des asked him, would he be throwing his hat into what was a fairly sizable ring at that stage?
Yeah.
And he was being coy about it for sure, but he also mentioned at the end that if he had the spare time that others do, then he almost certainly would. Now, he mentioned this morning that he's had a somewhat change of circumstances in his job. He's been based in around Munster, and that ultimately means that he can lean more time towards it. But we saw that report from the ESRI last week, which suggests that
31 hours for players.
31 hours for players.
So can you imagine what a manager's doing?
Exactly. Managers have to put in so much time for this thing.
And Sheedy knows all that because, remember, he also was part of the body that recommended the changes to the whole hurling structures. He was part of that committee for hurling 2020. So he's involved in every single route, to me, from the grassroots to the elite level in the sport. So he knows the sport very well. But they do say the one thing about him as well is his just ability to motivate people. And he has about 6, I think, of the 2010 team still there. He's got a big group of players there still that will be leaders for him. And then you're talking about bringing in some, obviously they're going to look for some defenders maybe from that under-21 team, because the full back line has always been the issue. So Robert Byrne or Brian McGrath and also Jake Morris obviously, caused a bit of a sensation a few times in the summer. So there's talent on that under-21 team. It'll be really interesting to see how it's married as well. And remember, the thing that people forget, and they're so competitive in Tipperary, but the only team that beat them badly this summer was Limerick. They drew with Cork. They made a fantastic comeback, if I remember, against Cork. And with 14, I think they were down to 14. And controversial goal and all, I know, was it a goal, was it not a goal, the Jason Ford goal? But they drew. So they drew with Waterford and they drew with Cork. And they only lost to Clare, I think, by 2. So,
fine margins.
Very fine margins in Munster.
It's very hard to judge people on that Munster Championship this season, particularly because there were a bunch of draws. People kind of forget that in the Munster Championship this year. And a lot of the games that were settled one way or the other, there was a couple of points.
Tiny margins. I think one of the things that went against Mick Ryan as well was their inability to win their home games and to make Semple Stadium that stronghold again. So I think that's probably something that will be a big emphasis for him. But that's my point, is Tip weren't that far off. And yet it was as if, I know Mick Ryan, I think, what was it, 3 out of 9 championship games they won under his tenure. But they are harsh critics down there. And yet Sheedy is willing to go back into it. But he's certainly never a man, he never strikes you as a man who's afraid of a challenge. He's
a brave man. Going back is something that you often hear, and something that managers broach more than others. We'll get to Jose Mourinho in a while. He's done it with Chelsea. There are others who've done it as well. James Horan's obviously in the frame for a return with Mayo as well.
Which really amazes me. I'm amazed James Horan's gone back to Mayo.
You kind of wonder. With Sheedy, I can see why. because there's always that thing with him, regardless of whether or not he's got time. It's he walked away in 2010 on the absolute high. And you would imagine that he looked at the Eamon O'Shea years in particular and was thinking, probably should have stuck this out for
Well, and
another
Eamon
year.
O'Shea and Mick Ryan were both involved, I think, in his management, weren't they?
But
So
O'Shea in
like,
particular, when you look at those years, when you kind of think of the years they went through after that 2010 win, they thought maybe I should have stuck around for another year, maybe two at least.
And I think going back, you know, this I don't go with all these, you know, these cliches, never go back. I think going back in GA is interesting as well. It's not the same as professional sport, I think, as well. Sometimes it is the passion for your own county, and it is the desire to see your own county, you know, maximise its talent that takes you back. So, you know, very often it is a very parochial, you know, passion that you have for something that makes you go back. It's slightly different, I think, than professional sport.
We're expecting white smoke from Mayo in the next couple of weeks. You mentioned you'd be surprised if James Horner. You were surprised that James Horner's throwing his hat in.
Yeah, well, I remember. I think that game in Limerick, that famous replayed semi-final in Limerick, was his last game, and I remember watching him walking away from it that evening. And that game was a sensational game. It was one I was privileged enough to be working at. I'll never forget that game as long as I live. The physicality of it, we could literally hear the hits. Oh my goodness! And in Limerick, actually, the press box in Limerick is quite far away from the stand, from the pitch, and you don't hear. That evening, you could feel and hear every crunch, and it was just a gladiatorial game of football, and you know there was so much happened in it. And I remember thinking, I understand why he'll walk away from this one. My goodness, you know, they have given every drop of blood out there today. So I am quite surprised to see him back again. There must be passion, must be at the heart of it, and that willingness, that belief, you know. But I think he's going back into a very different situation in terms of personnel and talent and age profile and everything, maybe than Sheedy is going back in.
Sheedy's, it strikes me there's a couple of tweaks maybe needed to that squad, and with Horan, I mean, we've been saying it for probably a year and a half that there is major surgery needed on that Mayo side to bring through the next generation of players. We're not looking to bump out the Andy Morans of this world, not by any means, but you need to know that if they can't play for whatever reason, that somebody else can step in that's of an equal.
Exactly. Whereas you look at Tipperary hurling and you look at the talents like Ronan McGrath, John McGrath, these people that have popped up in the last 2 years, you know, have come through the underage system. We've seen them develop even from schools, and you know that there is a real mixture of talent there. This year, for some reason, what I think is really interesting was that they went away from that game that they were so good at playing. That game that just, you know, that they just rattled goals in and ran at you at every possible, and their only thought, they became like Kilkenny, their only thought was, how many goals can we score here? And in time that was never good enough to score a point, it was a goal. And to me, they went away from that under the last management, and I think that'll be really interesting to see, can he bring that back to them, you know, that verve, really.
It's something we'll put to him later, but Tipperary seems like a great county for whispers, like we've seen, like without wanting to go into any like one rumour in particular, because God knows we could probably pick a few of them. Like, it seems to be a county that, I don't know, deals in that more than many others that I've seen over the last while. I don't know.
They definitely come down hard on people when they don't do well, and their expectations are incredibly high. And they have very good network of local papers down there. I was talking to Shane Brophy actually today because I was asking about the JP McManus, and Shane is with the Nina Guardian. There's a couple of really good papers in Tipperary, and you know they give extensive coverage to GA, but it's always, and also the local radio is very strong down there.
It is huge.
So
Ken Hogan's a brilliant commentator.
Huge down there. So you have all of that driving a county that was and is still very proud of its hurling tradition. So fair dues to him. And it will be really interesting. I think it will be really interesting to see. He has to solve the full back problem. He has to settle the defence, and they have to start winning. You know, they have to be sure that they win in Semple. That's the big one for them.
Dan's texted us, and keep your text going 53106 for 30 cent if you want to get in contact with us. Is his reappointment not a craving for short-term success at the expense of an entire new vision? That's something we mentioned there.
Yeah, and I've been looking at some of the feedback today, just, you know, from people on social media, and definitely there is a feeling among some people that Cahill would have been a much braver choice, you know, that going back to Sheedy is a conservative choice. But I don't necessarily follow that, because I think that he is quite visionary. He was when he managed them before, and because he's so connected with high performance sport and things like that, in all of the other jobs and roles that he takes voluntarily, I think he could bring something new to it. But his backroom team will be interesting to see how inventive that is as well.
There's a suggestion that Sheedy came to this process fairly late as well.
It does seem to be that, you know, he was in the running. He was in the.
I think he's always going to be a name that's mentioned. I mean, he said himself, him and Nicky English are going to be names.
Yeah, exactly. And look, it's the same. Sure, look at poor James Horn is mentioned every time, you know, the Mayo job comes up. But And also he was in the running for the DG's job in the GA, and that ran on quite late as well, and maybe that was a factor in him waiting and holding his peace to see.
We'll try and find out a little bit more about it. We're going to speak to him a little bit later on in the show, so definitely stay tuned for that. We'll hear from some of the protagonists involved in today's Liam Miller tribute match shortly, but there is League Cup action on tonight as well. There's a fairly sizable story brewing that Paul Pogba won't be allowed captain Manchester United again going forward. Of course, he was fairly outspoken about United's approach following Saturday's 1-1 draw with Wolves. United are at home to Derby in the League Cup's third round tonight at Old Trafford. Jose Mourinho has just spoken to Sky, so obviously with that Pogba story in mind. And Jose was asked what he's expecting to see from his side.
I know for sure what Derby is coming for. Every club that plays against us, they have that objective, and Frank doesn't hide that when he brings his team fully strength, not worried about the next championship game, just thinking about tonight. So from our opponents, I know always what they want from the game. And that's what I demand from my boys, because if you don't match the opposition motivation, you are in trouble.
No, the likes of Paul Pogba or Luke Shaw tonight. Can you explain why?
Yeah, rested. I gave a rest to Luke, to Paul, to Victor, to Valencia, to David. I gave the rest to these 5 players. I knew that I couldn't give much more. I knew that I had to play with a very good team, because I was exactly expecting from Frank and Derby what they bring.
You worked so closely with Frank Lampard for so long. How strange is it now to be rivals as managers?
It's not strange. It's nice. It's nice. I never hide. Was one of the best players I've worked with, and not just one of the best players, one of the best professionals. And I wish him the best for his career. So not at all will be strange. Maybe we still have time to have a laugh on the touchline, because our relation is obviously very, very good. But Frank is showing that he's coming here to win the match, and I also show them some respect by playing with a team that I think is a strong team.
How do you not ask the follow-up question?
I can't even listen to Mourinho. I just get so bored listening to.
Well, like, how do you go? Paul Pogba is like, obviously there's the story brewing that he's not going to be like captain of the side going forward. He's already done it on 3 occasions so far this season. This is broken in the last hour and a half. Coming into the game against Derby tonight, you're asking, why is he playing? I was just rested.
He's rested.
And he answers it fairly quickly. Clearly something going on there.
He got it out there very fast, that's for sure, yeah.
Clearly there's slightly more to it than that. We don't get the follow-up question. 9 changes for United tonight. Sergio Romero starts in goal. Diogo Dalot, Eric Bailly, Phil Jones, Ashley Young, Nemanja Matic, Juan Mata, Ander Herrera, Anders Lingard, Romelu Lukaku, and Anthony Martial gets a rare start for them tonight. But surely you've got to ask the question of why Pogba isn't there. It seems a bizarre story. It follows on, I suppose, from the questioning that Tiger Woods got today at his Ryder Cup press conference, which is one question saying, I don't know if anybody in the media has said thank you, but for all of us that earn our living in the golf business, a big thank you for what you did on Sunday.
Oh dear.
Maddening stuff.
That was, who asked that? I'm dying to know.
It was a Bob. So I doubt it was Bob Bubka.
I'm imagining it was a US golfer.
It was definitely a Bob, and I'm pretty sure it was a US journalist, but there you go. The other news, I suppose, following on from that in the GA front, was the JP McManus philanthropy, which has granted 100,000. Now, we don't know, we actually still haven't heard if New York, Warwickshire and London are involved in this, but 100,000 to each club, or the clubs for each county. Is a fairly big and massive fill-up for those on a financial front, but kind of strange that it's out there so publicly.
Yeah, I tend to like my philanthropists anonymous. I think if you're a real philanthropist, you don't tell anybody that you're doing good things, and it is really interesting to see this happening. A couple of things. One, I do know people who have told me in the past that are involved in different sports in Limerick and have told me that very often they would meet JP at something and they put their hand in their pocket later on when they get home and find a cheque in their pocket. And I can tell you that I've heard that several times, and not in the last 2 years. So that's in the past. So there is that element of him giving people money and sometimes giving it anonymously. But I think it is interesting. I prefer, as I said, the National Basketball Arena. We wouldn't have a National Basketball Arena in Ireland, in Tala, if not for I think Chuck Feeney was the man who gave a lot of it. And there was never any notion of it being the Chuck Feeney Foundation, and there isn't in this case either. But it is interesting that it's public. But that's why I rang Shane Brophy today in the Nina Guardian. He was telling me the letter that they read out of the Tip County Board, which has gone out to all the boards, it literally had the cheque still attached on the corner as it was being read out.
It's very smashy and nicey. It's like, I don't want to talk about my charity work.
But the reason it was read out was because he has been quite specific. One, that he wants the money to go to club development, and two, and people could argue there's a bit of irony in this, he wants a paper trail kept. He wants to see where the money is being spent. And, you know, anybody who's involved in GA, the one place you would not like to see it spent is going into the back pocket of somebody managing teams. So if it does go to clubs, it should be spent on something that's worthwhile for
paper
clubs.
Trail, GA.
Yeah, well, there is an irony for the person who doesn't pay tax in Ireland as well, clearly, looking for a paper trail.
Well, yeah, Simon Carswell's, Twitter account obviously put that out earlier on today. He said that it was basically, there was paperwork came to light in 2015 in an IRS case that showed that he wasn't registered for income or capital gains tax in Ireland since 1995. Of course, there are probably reasons running around that, and JP McManus has his own affairs and keeps them, I imagine, legally within the dishes.
He's entitled to give money to anybody he wants, and in this case, obviously the message in the letter was, we've had great joy in Limerick from the All-Ireland, and, you know, here's something, and I want this to go to clubs, and let's hope that they can use it, you know, wisely and spread the message, if you like, and the good things that are done. And loads of people are saying, look, that money will be worth something to some people, but won't be worth an awful lot to some others. But like in Fermanagh, they only have 22 clubs. It's 4,500 for each club, right?
Leitrim's getting like 4,000 a club.
Leitrim will get about 4,000. Dublin, interestingly enough, will only get about just about 1,000 because they have 91 clubs in Dublin.
Keep you and McKenna happy.
Yeah, well, did you see Mossa Quinn was tweeting today going, Dublin should be getting more, and everybody jumped on it. It was genius. He just lit the fire and then waited to see who'd come in on it. But you know, that kind of money would maybe pay for the floodlighting for a year, or you know, pay for the transport for all the underage games for a year, whatever. So there is a practical use to it, all right. But as I said, I think it's unusual how it has been done in a public manner for a person who does a lot of stuff anonymously as well as publicly. So it should be said. Cliona? Nice little windfall to get.
Absolutely. I'd gladly take the Euro Millions for the same reasons. Cliona, we'll leave it there. Thank you so much for now.
Thanks, Richie.
Electric Ireland, sponsors of the GA Minor Football and Hurling Championships, are proud to introduce the 2018 Minor Star Awards. We spoke to Michael Fennelly about just those last week. They honour the major moments on the pitch and recognise the individual performances throughout the championship season. And to celebrate, we're giving you the chance to win, in a philanthropic note of our own, a €250 each night this week to spend on GA gear. Just identify our non-GA mystery voice who lined out in an All-Ireland minor hurling final himself and says the secret of his world-famous banoffee pie is to get the balance of bananas and toffee just right.
When that comes together and works well, you can sort of get the benefit of both.
As they used to say about profiteroles, good cream and good ingredients.
When that comes together and works well, you can sort of get the benefit of both.
Text your name and your answer to 53106 for 30 cents if you think you know who that is. And we will announce the winner later on in tonight's show, winning £250 to spend on GA gear, all with thanks to Electric Ireland, sponsor of the GA Minor Championships. This is major. Busy show on the way. We will be speaking to Nate Boyer, the man who encouraged Colin Kaepernick to take a knee on tonight's show. Also on the way, we'll look back on some Copa Libertadores nostalgia goodness with Tim Vickery in the football show. We'll also speak with Jacob Steinberg about Declan Rice and the current goings on at West Ham. League of Ireland with Johnny Ward on the night Dundalk could wrap up the title, and speaking about Liam Buckley's departure as St. Pat's manager. But next, we speak to the incoming old Tipperary manager, Liam Sheedy.
Off the Ball on News Talk. Thanks to Screwfix.ie, championing the trade with a choice of over 20,000 quality trade products. The Pat Kenny Show.
There's a lot of superfood talk out there, and it's super rubbish, all of it. And there's There's nothing to be gained from it.
Just makes you feel good about yourself.
Yeah, it makes you feel good and makes you feel